Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode. And what a glorious day it is to be having 2 truckloads of plasterboard delivered. We've got the guys from USG Boral coming out, dropping off all this board, which is going to be used throughout the whole project. Now what you'll see in this video is all the different products that we're using, and then all the different applications it's going to be used for. So some of the items that the guys have got in the truck is all our 13mm wall sheets, which we're going to be using externally, all our wet stop plasterboard, which is going to be used in all the wet areas, some sound stop board, which is be using in the office, media room, and a couple of other areas, our ceiling sheets, and then our decorative cornice, along with some of our compounds and various other things. As we go through the episode, I'll talk about the different products, what areas they're going to be used in, and then I'll come back at the end and tell you a little bit more of a final wrap up of using the USG Boral products. All right, let's jump into the episode. Now something different for us here, we're going to try a product called the wet stop board, which is actually a plasterboard. Now we're using plasterboard in lieu of a fibrous cement. I guess the benefits are, which you'll see me here cutting some of the fibrous cement sheeting, is when you do that, there's dust. You also have to use some sort of mechanical tool to cut the board, versus when you use the wet stop board, you can just basically use your Stanley knife, score and snap and install it like you would any plasterboard. Hey guys, so here with Wayne from USG Boral. He's come out, we're lucky enough to partner up with the guys for our plasterboard here. And what I'm going to show you is a test on their wet stop board and just show you the difference between the fibre cement. You saw me cut that one earlier and you could see how much dust was coming off it. And now what we're going to do is do a soak test so you can see how water resistant the actual wet stop is.
So James, what we're going to do is we're going to place some food dye, just standard food dye, into a bucket of water, and then we're going to place our sample sheets that we've got here. We've got fibre cement, we've got our 10mm standard sheetrock, and our wet stop water resistant core board.
So the guys are going to do a little bit of a time lapse, so we'll leave it in for an hour or so.
Then we're going to open back up and just see where the food dye actually penetrates. Right James, so now we'll start cutting the samples that we put in the water before to test them. Take our sheetrock out, and we'll take the fibre cement out, lay them flat there, and we'll get you to cut the 10mm plasterboard first, and then the fibre cement, and then the wet stop last. Dye has actually penetrated the core, so that's our standard 10mm sheetrock board.
So you can see the difference there, how much that's soaked in.
And you'll see there, got a little bit of dye just on the edge there from when we cut it, but you can see it's actually stopped penetrating the core itself.
So you can see here with the wet stop, all you got to do is fix it every 100mm the whole way down. So you can see here as we're going through these bathrooms just how easy the product is to use. Lightweight, fast and efficient. Another benefit of the wet stop board, being a 10mm plasterboard, if you have any offcuts that are left over, you can actually use those on other walls inside the house, whether it be inside patching for a wardrobe or above a door head or just anywhere there might be some small offcuts. That's the same thickness as your standard plasterboard everywhere else and can just be set in, versus if you had a fibrous cement board, then that really just goes to the waste. So you can see there just how fast that actually goes in. That's with screws spaced every 100 millimeters. That'll take up to 33 kilos per square meter. So yes, it looks like a lot of screws, but with a collated screw gun, bang, 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 that goes really quick compared to fibrous cement and having to actually pre-drill and countersink the screws. Not to mention it's lighter, easy to cut. Okay, so here you go. You get to see one of our bathrooms completed in the wet stop board. Now you got to see that go in and just how easy the installation method was. Now touch on some of those benefits. And for us, it was just how quick it could go in. And that was number one, the weight of the board, lightweight. Number two, how easy it was to cut. You basically just need a Stanley knife and you can score and snap just like standard plasterboard. So there you go. This one is base coated and now it's ready just for our waterproofer to come in and start laying the tiles. So very happy with how this one come up. Like I said, this is the first bathroom that I've used with the wet stop in years, and yeah, I can see why people are starting to use it now because there's a big benefit just how quick and easy it is for the install. Now, up next, this is the sound stop board. Now, what is the sound stop? That's an acoustic board, so it's designed to keep the acoustic levels down or stop the noise transfer in rooms. It's a denser board, I guess you could say. You can see it's got that yellow paper on it, and that's how you identify that it's a sound stop. Where we've decided to use it is in our main bedroom. You can see we're sheeting here. The reason we chose the main bedroom was because it backs onto the main kitchen, lounge, dining area, so there could be a lot of noise transfer between those sort of two rooms. So try and keep that noise down. The sheet combined with like a denser insulation bat hopefully should do the trick in that area. A couple of the other rooms that we're using it in, we're also going to put in our office. We do a bit of podcasting, YouTube videos, voiceovers, that type of thing, just like I'm doing now. And we want to try and keep that noise transfer or keep it pretty cozy without any echo. Hopefully you can hear now what it's like. I'm actually recording this from the room that's just been sheeted. The other one is the media room, obviously no brainer. We're going to be having the TV going in there. Kids are probably going to have it up full blast and just keeping everyone up at the house and awake. They're the reasons we wanted to choose that board in those rooms, to try and keep that noise transfer down. So pretty self-explanatory, fingers crossed, it works as good as they promote it. Walls and ceilings, this is all pretty straightforward. I mentioned before that we're using 13mm sheets on our external walls. You don't really need to do that, that's just more personal choice. I just wanted a thicker board there just because we've got a 90mm frame and clad weatherboard on the outside. Just wanted to beef it up a little bit more for a bit of peace of mind. You'll also see here that we're hand nailing a lot of the wall sheets. Yes, I know it's a bit old school, but we did have 2 screw guns on site. Both of them were malfunctioning, and it was just quicker in the end to say bugger it, get the clouts out and just start nailing it on. You'll see that we persisted in the earlier clips where we had to put all the wet stop up in the bathrooms because it has to be screwed every 100mm, so we just had to make the guns work or just be persistent. And you'll also see here, like after we get through our wall sheets, and then we start to get into some of our ceiling sheets, we had to do the same thing because obviously that's screwed up into the metal ceiling battens. But again, it's all pretty self-explanatory, making sure that all the ceiling battens are the right spacings, making sure that all the screw fixings in your sheets are correct, always referring back to the technical manual. If you're unsure, refer to whether it's Boral or any other supplier, what product you're using and how often you have to put the screws on the nails. And then also things like your stud adhesive, making sure that that's going on correctly as well. good part of the week getting the bulk of all the walls and ceilings up. And now that they're up and pretty much sheeted, the whole place is ready to go. Now we're going to move on to some of our settings and some of the compounds. So I'll talk you through some of that and show you how it all works. Setting. Now this is the stage of the job where you really need a pro, or you need someone who knows what they're doing. You can bang up board pretty easily, walls and ceilings. Even that said, you should always know what you're doing. But when it comes to setting, you really need to know how to set correctly all your joints to be able to get a really seamless finish. Now you can see here, the first stage that Benny's actually setting in all these joints is with what they call a base coat. Now the base coat goes in with tape to reinforce all the joints. Once all that's applied to the walls, the ceilings, external corners, butt joints, whatever it might be, then you move on from the base coat into some of your top coats. Now, some of the top coats that you can use, top coat light, but we've also got dust control topping. So what we're doing now is going around and going to tape up all the internals. But first just got to check if there's any nails that are sticking out. So just go around with the knife, and if there's any that are proud, just give them a whack in with the hammer. And then you're good to come down here and do all the setting. So check all those, and then you'll see the taping and all the paper go in. And that's what they come up like when they're done. So mud with the bazooka, tape, roll her over a couple of times to squeeze the mud out, and then the finishing tool just to give it that first application. Setting can be done basically by hand or by machine. Now we've done a mixture of both. You'll see that we've done some setting earlier on just with our trowels, but we've also used some of the boxes which are a lot quicker. That's where you apply the mud into the machine, and then you can actually run that across your joints and it just oozes out more mechanically. So a quicker finish, and it's a little bit tidier too actually. Some of the blades and some of the machines that they're using these days are really, really good.
There was a single nail in the middle of a 1350 sheet, and when it comes to taping in, you can see this flex here because the sheet hasn't been nailed off correctly. So when you actually bed the tape in, the sheet obviously bends, flushes out, but then comes back to where it finds its natural, and then it creates this hollow internal that's not full with mud.
Putting those screws in that were missing just pulls that sheet back, and you just pick up that it was a bit sort of wobbly. So now that they're in, we can mud back over it and hopefully get that internal corner a little bit better. For all the internals in the wardrobes and in the linens, we've decided to go square set up the top rather than do cornice in there. It's just a bit of a wasted feature, I guess, if you're not going to see it. It's all going to be behind doors. So basically just setting those, taping the internals in around the tops and the corners to finish that off as well. All right, everything's second coated and now we're up to our final coats. So you can see here, this is one that's been finished off. And what we're going around doing is just putting that final top coat on all the joints just to get everything ready for sanding. So I'll show you some of that action now. And that probably covers most of what we're doing with the setting. There is some square setting inside some of the wardrobes that I spoke about. There's some fiddly little areas you need to get in with some knives. But once it's set, then you're really ready for the next stage, which is either your cornice or for your sanding.
This first piece I've measured with two externals is 113mm. To accurately cut it without holding the tape and just guessing against this internal edge, I just add the 10mm and put it on the external of that bottom. So I actually mark this to cut it at 123.
Right, so there you go. That is all of our cornice now installed. That was the Sydney 90mm cornice that we used by USG Boral. Really nice product. Like I said in the demonstration, it's got an up and it's got a down, so it's a little bit trickier than your standard 90mm cove, but really impressed with how that came out. Now what we're going to do is top some of the miters, give those a little bit of a sand up during the sanding stages, and that'll be ready for very nice finish. Okay, so this is one of the rooms that we're going to do a comparison on compared to the room next door. So all this has been topped with what we call the dust control. So you'll see in here, hopefully with these lights that we've got set up, that the dust will sort of drop straight down and won't sort of fill the room. And in the room next door, which is pretty much an identical size, same size bedroom, that's set with your standard top coat. So you'll hopefully see the dust particles and the difference between the two videos. You can see in front of those, there's not a lot of dust particles floating around. We'll do the same test in the room next door once we sand that ceiling. Wow, I didn't realise it'd be actually this much of a difference. I said, look at that now over those lights versus what was next door, what you saw in the other room. That was the two different compounds. One was the total light. That's the one that we used next door there. That was just one room that we've done pretty much in the entire house. And then the rest of it was the dust control. And that dust control, like I mentioned, we've used pretty much everywhere else. So we only used that top light as just an experiment there. But you can see the difference, how much dust actually came off that LED light in the last room versus this room that we just did here, and it's just so much clearer. There's still dust hanging around there at the moment. See a big difference, very happy with how that came out. All right, there you go guys, you got to see all of our plastering stages take place. Now, big thanks to the guys at USG Boral who partnered up with us on this project. We got to use some of their different products and some of their different compounds throughout the build. You got to see that wet stop board go in the bathrooms, the sound stop where we wanted those really good acoustics, which was great, and then just some of the various compounds like that dust control that we used in that last little shot there. So yeah, like I said, very happy with how it turned out. What you're going to see coming up next in some of the other stages is some of the carpentry, some of the fit outs for skirtings and architraves, kitchens going in, floorboards, and then we're coming down to that home stretch of getting this job completed. So thanks guys for watching. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Don't forget to hit that notification button if you're new. Follow us on all our social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, all that sort of stuff. We're there as well. All right, until next time, I'll catch you in the next episode. Cheers.